Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg for the Sales Pro Network. It is Friday, October 14th. I'm broadcasting here from Long Island, New York. It's a beautiful day. As some of you know, I am a sales coach and trainer. I work with both individuals and organizations internationally to help them achieve measurable and sustainable sales increases. And I founded the Sales Pro Network as a place where salespeople can come in, network, learn, get great information, get advice and coaching from a lot of wonderful sales trainers and coaches like myself. And every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, we either do a live training or a live interview with someone who can add value to the profession of sales. And today's no exception. Before I introduce our guest, which you can already see on the screen, if you're watching us live, please say hello in the comments. If you're watching us on Facebook and you have not connected your Facebook account to StreamYard, when you say hello, it's not going to say your name. So be sure to put your name in there too. If you have any questions for our guests during the broadcast, please do put them in the comments and I'll pass them on. And finally, if you're watching us on the replay, please put replay in the comments. And now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Ali Mirza. Ali is the CEO of Rose Garden Consulting, and he was named one of the top 10 sales leaders in America by Business Insider. That's pretty damn impressive. Good morning, Ali.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm outstanding, man. I'm really excited to be speaking with you today, and I'm sure the Sales Pros and the Sales Pro Network will have some questions for you. But I'm going to jump right in. One of the things I do when I'm doing these interviews is I go into people's LinkedIn accounts and their websites, and I look for interesting things. And there was something that popped out at me on yours, and I'd love to know about what you use behavioral economics when you analyze sales teams. What is behavioral economics? Sorry. I blew my own format. Before we get to what behavioral economics is, can you just give us the 2-minute version of what brought you up to this point?
What brought me up to this point in my life? I think I'm just a salesperson through and through. And so I think any salesperson that tells you that they've always wanted to be a salesperson, I think it's just lying. I think we all fall into it. Just ask backwards. I mean, like, none of us wanted to be salespeople. We just found a knack for it or just found it. But long story short, I was, in university one day. My friend comes up to me and says, "Hey, would you need a summer job?" I said, "Sure." So, and it turned out to be selling life insurance door to door. So I did that and found some luck with it. I ended up doing that for about 4 years, built up a sales team of 50 reps, built up my own one from 0 all the way to 50 reps, managed them. And I was working out really well until I realized one day, I don't like insurance. I don't like anything about insurance. I never even had any insurance while I'm selling it the whole time. So I was just like, okay, forget this, which is naturally leads me to start my own consulting practice. And effectively, it's just been I'd love to say smooth sailing for the past 9 years, but of course not. Originally, we started off as just outsourced sales consulting. So I'd go into an organization, just basically put on a retainer and then sell for them. But then eventually one of my clients said, "Hey, look, why don't you write down what it is that you do for us?" I'm like, "Well, that wasn't exactly our initial engagement." He's like, "Well, what if you get hit by a bus?" I'm like, "Well, that sounds like a you problem, not a me problem." And he's like, "Well, what if we pay you for it?" And I was like, "Okay, that's how you speak to a salesperson." So I was just like, "Okay, cool." But that's when I had the light bulb moment. And I realized that, hey, this is infinitely more scalable, is to go into organizations, build up their sales teams, and then leave it for them, and then kind of walk away after the fact and go find other people. And then so for the past, I'd say about 6-7 years, that's effectively what we've been doing, is going into organizations and building out their sales teams.
Got it. And you said something that I also believe, that almost nobody goes into sales on purpose. We almost all fall into it by accident. I know my father, my stepfather, and both grandfathers were career sales people, and none of them ever made a living. And I swore I would never, under any circumstances, no matter what happened, go into sales. And 48 years later, here I am.
I mean, that's just the way it works.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm not sad. I'm actually a college dropout, and as Jewish people like to say, I do okay. So my goal is, and I know yours is, to help other salespeople and sales organizations do okay and way better than that. Before we get to that first question that I was about to ask you, tell me about that shirt. I'm assuming that stands for something. What is the TMMNEM stand for?
So unfortunately, I can't just come out and tell everyone, but I did kind of let you know about the story of how we kind of made it. So one of the organizations that I was working with, I was actually running their sales department, and it was a very high pressure cooker type of sale. Missing goal and missing quota was just not allowed. I think there's too many organizations that are cool with it. I'm not. Under no circumstance do we ever miss goal. And so basically, in order to kind of change the culture around that and create that mindset, I had these shirts created. And effectively, this is an acronym that stands for something, but you had to hit your quota the last day of the month, and you had to pull out what we called it dark to dark. So on the back of my shirt, it says dark to dark. And effectively what that means is you showed up before the sun rose, and then you left after the sun went down. And in order to hit your quota. And if all those things were true, you earned a shirt and you were told what TMM and MEM stood for. Nobody else in the organization knew what it stood for. And so we're trying to create this little cult in this little environment of, very high, highly motivated individuals that are high performers and high achievers. So that's kind of the story behind the shirt.
I love that. So everybody wanted the shirt and nobody really knew what it meant.
Yeah, correct. And then once enough people got these, then we created another one, which is IMC, IMB. So then it's like, it's just like you got to unlock all the different tiers. I love a good free T-shirt. So I'm just like, all right, well, let's just make it happen.
That's great. So let's get back to that behavioral economics question. What is behavioral economics, and how do you use that when you analyze sales teams?
So here's the way I look at it is we'll utilize behavioral economics to build out the sales structure. The sales team itself, we utilize a few other assessments in order to kind of scale those. But as far as behavioral economics goes, behavioral economics and behavioral science is the study of how human beings make decisions. And this is kind of one of the core principles of what it is that we do. I don't subscribe to any sales methodology. And there's some, in my opinion, that are better than others, but for the most part, irrespective of which one you're talking about, whether it's Sandler, Challenger, Medic, Bant, Solution, whichever one you're talking about, it's not that they're wrong. In my opinion, they are incomplete, because if you look at every single one of those sales methodologies, they are all logic-based. If this, then that, say this, and this person should do this because it makes sense. The reality is us human beings, we're just dirty animals and just greedy creatures, and we don't make logical decisions, right? Because if that was true, we'd all be saving for retirement, we'd all be in decent shape, we'd all eat appropriately. We just don't do those things. So then why? And so behavioral economics seeks to figure that out and actually create choice architecture and defaults in order to make sure that what we are trying to motivate, the action we're trying to motivate, is in line with how this person makes decisions. So to bring it all back, as humans, we make decisions based off emotion and we justify with logic. This is why I don't believe in sales methodologies, is because none of them are actually sitting there focused on how do we emotionally compel this person to move forward. And if your system and your structure and your sales process does not take that into consideration, it is wildly incomplete. And you will only close the people that are already wanting to move forward. This is why I disagree with most people, most of the LinkedIn gurus out there talk about like, don't chase and don't do this and don't do that. It's like, no, you just didn't do your job. It is your responsibility as a salesperson to compel this person to want to move forward. Yes, you have to find a mutual fit. No, you shouldn't lie, but those are wildly far apart, is you doing your job and compelling somebody and making them want to move forward, and then being a shady dirtbag and lying to them. Like, no one's telling you to do that. But just because you're, chasing after a deal and actually pursuing it in an appropriate fashion, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
And I did notice on your website that you don't really believe in sales process, but you do say sales experience. Well, what is a sales experience as opposed to a sales process?
So for me, a sales process, and I mean, this is obviously marketing and semantics sometimes, but it's not that I don't believe in sales process, but a lot of times when we think about a sales process, we're thinking of very fundamentally rooted or tight steps, right? Which at face value makes sense when you've got a junior sales team and you're just trying to find a line of best fit. But the reality is once you do have an elevated sales team, and once you are you've got them all trained up, and they're a little bit more senior, that's where the wheels just start to fall off, because the process is usually too tight and too rigid to allow those people to navigate the nuance of the deals. So for me, it's like, okay, we can build out a sales process, that's fine, but what is the ultimate sales experience that we're going for? And that is kind of like the foundational, that's where that emotional component comes in, is, okay, what do we want this person to feel? Because, and this is not about like esoteric, put the customer first and customer service. Like, no, obviously that's important, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, again, if someone makes a decision emotionally, what emotion must they feel at this stage in order for them to be right for the next stage? And it will all cascade from that. So for us, we look at the sales experience and, okay, so what inspiration do we need to convey at this point? What confidence do we need to convey at this point? It's not about just checking a box and saying, hey, I showed case studies. Did they believe the case studies? Were the case studies relevant to them? Did they sit down and say, wow, that's what I want, right? Or are they like, cool, okay, you did this for somebody else, right? I think too much when we're sitting down building out sales processes, make sure you email them this case study. Whereas with a sales experience is, hey, use this case study as a tool to make sure that you convey the confidence or you achieve this sort of response from this person.
Yeah, I think, for a brand new salesperson, they need a clearly defined sales process. They need here's what you do step by step. But as you get more and more experience, you have to take into account brain science. And that's exactly what you're saying, that, we have to get inside the head of the prospect. And the way brain science tends to work is that when people are making a buying decision, they tend to go to the negative first. Here's why I shouldn't do this. What's going to happen if I do this and it turns out badly? And if we're not talking to the emotional side, but look, we've all heard salespeople people buy with emotion and back it up with logic. You said it yourself. And if we're only selling to the logic, then that's often why we walk away and we go, gee, I gave the greatest presentation of my life. Why didn't that person buy? It's because you didn't get to them emotionally.
Well, correct. That's one part. And then here's the other part. And this, like, I'm not trying to be one of those shady salespeople where they're, or shady sales trainers where they're just like, the buyer's a liar. It's like let's not just like paint with broad brushstrokes like that. But here's what people don't understand is, I actually heard this beautiful quote the other day. It was something to the effect of, we promise according to our hopes and we perform according to our fears. So if you actually sit there and you think about that, that rings very true. And what I've found in many, many years of selling, right? What I've found is when we take the prospect at face value, a lot of times we are setting ourselves up for failure because one, there's what they're communicating that maybe we didn't receive properly, right? Maybe we didn't fully understand what they were saying. Two, maybe they didn't fully know how to convey their message and they kind of fumbled it. Three, maybe they're not comfortable telling you everything that they feel, and maybe they feel a little bit of reservation in being overly transparent with you, whether it's because they don't trust you or whether they just feel guilty and feel bad for telling you no. And so the reality is when you sit there and you believe everything and you're not actually, trying to be appropriately inquisitive or scrutinizing what it is that they're saying. Is what this person's saying actually makes sense? Will this actually happen, right? Like, use your own best judgment. Is this person saying, yep, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to show this to my boss and, he'll sign off on it. And then you're sitting there being like, okay, cool. I've got a done deal. Let me go and spend my commission. Tell my sales manager, yep, he said he's going to sign it first thing next week. Like, check yourself a little bit. Be like, why would he not sign? That's the question no one ever asks themselves, right? Every single time when I'm sitting down and I'm coaching a sales team and I'm doing that pipeline review, I would simply say, why would this deal die? And if you do not have a good enough answer for me, I do not trust that deal. Because because that means that you have not looked at your downside, which means how could you have prepared for it, which means how can I actually expect the upside? You haven't triaged the deal properly.
Yeah, as a sales coach who manages various sales teams, one of the services I offer is outsourced sales management. And salespeople by their very nature are optimistic. If they weren't, they couldn't do their job, because for most of us, we hear more no's than yes, and that's fine. But that optimism that allows us to hear no, 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 no all the time and keep doing our job also blinds us to when people are really saying no. And for me, that is the time. There's a difference between the real no, which means I'm not doing business with you, and the no that means I need a little bit more information, or I need some more reassurance, or I need something, and this might turn into a yes. And too many salespeople are wasting their time chasing prospects that really have no intention of doing business with you, but they don't, you said it before, they don't want to offend you. Excuse me. Or they think that if they say no to you, they're now going to get an argument. I don't argue with anybody. My job is to have a conversation or a series of conversations with enough people so that some of them choose to do business with me. I disagree with people who say it's my job to convince or persuade or talk people into things. I like your term, compel. That sits with me much better. But my job is just to be speaking to people in a way that I find out what they need. And if I have what they need, share how I'm going to help them get it and help them come to the decision that I hope they'll make, which is to choose to do business with me. But wasting your time chasing deals that aren't there, stupid. And I'm an incredibly optimistic and very positive person, but like you, when it comes to deals, I'm always looking at what could go wrong here. Why isn't this happening? If you've got to talk to your boss, who's the decision maker, why were you not talking to the decision maker? Why was the decision maker not in the conversation? One of my favorites is think it over. When so many salespeople think that when somebody says they're going to think it over, that they're going to mark it on their account. Oh, 3:30 on Wednesday, I'm going to think over Jeff's proposal. No, they're not. They've already made a decision. They just don't want to tell you. The decision was, I'm not going to move forward with you, but keep calling me up every 3 days and saying, I'm just following up on that proposal. You want to waste your time, Jeff? That's fine. I don't want to waste my time. I have no time to waste. And salespeople tend to spend way too much time chasing stuff that's just not there.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
By the way, Muhammad says, thank you, Jeff and Ali, for this podcast. As a new team manager, this topic is really helpful. Any particular advice that you would give to new team managers?
So it depends, Mohammed, in what situation. Were you a part of the team and now we're elevated, or are you a new team leader coming in? Either way, what I will say is you are not their friend. You are a team leader. That's the thing that you need to understand, and you need to understand what your role is as the team leader. It's your responsibility to help these people become people of value and elevate them. And sometimes you're going to have to tell them difficult truths. If you have not read the book Radical Candor by Kim Scott, that is the first book I would recommend to you. Don't read any other leadership books. Don't read anything. The first book you need to read is Radical Candor, because the reality is now you're going to get, if these were your peers and now you've been promoted, you're going to have to sit there and tell them, hey, that was bad. This was wrong. Don't do this. Stop doing that. You sound like a lunatic when you say this. Hey, this is super cringy when you say this. I don't know why you said that, but that's not going to help you move the deal forward, right? You're going to have to start having those types of conversations with them. And that is very difficult if you've never had to do it before. Either if you're brand new to the organization, you don't know these people, that's difficult. And then number two, if these were your peers, again, it's hard to do that. So the first thing I would say is just be direct, understand what your role is. You're going to have to leave and shed that old role behind. And now understand, okay, I'm a team leader. I'm supposed to manage these people. I'm supposed to help them grow. It is my responsibility. Don't ever sitting there thinking that, I don't want to say this might hurt that person's feelings. Do you know what? If you ever do that, it is irresponsible of you to allow that to continue. You have to understand what your responsibilities are now. The second that you understand that, you are good to go.
I love that. That's brilliant advice. I hope you were taking notes there, Muhammad, or if you watch this on the replay to get that again. I can't tell you how many times I've had to give salespeople, bad news or harsh criticism. The one that comes up most often is, hey, you talk too much. Salespeople think that they get paid to talk. No, we don't. Ali gets paid to talk. I get paid to talk, but not when I'm selling. When I'm selling, I get paid to ask questions and listen. And salespeople just jabber, jabber, jabber. Shut up. There's a lot of old sayings that I've heard over the many years I've been selling. And one of them is 2 ears, 1 mouth, listen twice as much as you speak. I've never figured out how to get my prospect to speak twice as much as me, but I can get them to speak as much as I do. And that's a conversation. And that's what I think selling's all about. Having a great conversation. Good morning, Franco Hebler from Texas. Good to see you here today. Sales managers love data. Salespeople often don't. And you say data doesn't close deals. People do. Are you not a fan of gathering data and having metrics?
I am, but not as much as everybody else. I think data is nice, and that's about as much as it is. So I disagree with people when they say things like data doesn't lie. No, but they're like data tells the truth and whatever. No, it doesn't. Data says nothing. That's what you need to understand. Data tells you nothing. It just is. Okay. It's up to you with your lens to interpret said data. And that's the problem, is we all have our own cognitive biases. And when you have your own biases, you will read into it too much. And the problem that it creates is then it creates this false narrative inside your head, it reinforces the narrative that you already have in your head. And it allows you to operate with extreme confidence. And you have no idea that maybe you're going pedal to the metal right off of a cliff. And so for me, I take data with caution. I just look at it for what it actually is telling me. And I don't look to read too much into it unless I know something to be a fact. So I look at data from a activity perspective and outcome perspective. But I think that there's too many people that look at the activity and the outcome, and then they create a narrative, and they believe that narrative is true because of the data. That's wildly inaccurate. That is false, because the data is true. The activities are true. The results are true. But the narrative as to how one got to the other, none of us know. And that is the problem with data, is that too many people get too confident. So as long as you can continue to be a skeptic and say, okay, look, here's the narrative I think, here's the data that supports it, but now I'm going to look for disconfirming data, or now I'm going to at least still test a few different hypotheses. That's how you actually make moves forward. Because the reality is this, it's very simple. And I'll tell you this, if it was that easy, you wouldn't have a problem on your hands. Because if the data tells you one thing and the results tell you the same thing and the narrative is true, then why haven't you fixed it? Why did that problem even happen? Why did you have to wait for the numbers to be published before you couldn't see that trending? Really? So that's the problem I have with data, is that too many people, it makes people too arrogant and too confident, and then they don't do anything until they have the data, right? And that's the other problem. So I learned that from if anyone's read the book 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. The first time I read it, I was like, this book's stupid. Second time I read it, I was like, wait, shit, this book actually makes a lot of sense. And so once you start to understand that you start to realize that data is somewhat important. Now here's the thing. Don't get me wrong. I track everything. Every single time my salespeople sneeze, I know it. I know everything about them. And you can call me a micromanager. I don't believe in micromanagement. There's no such thing as micromanagement, in my opinion. Micromanagement is something that is brought up by low achievers and low accountables. A high accountable who does their job, who's focused on the end goal. Well, number one, they view anything that I provide them with or anything that I look at as support and something that's going to help them get better. But think about it this way. If you're doing your job and you're hitting your numbers and you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, why would I crawl up your ass and bug you, right? I wouldn't. It's the ones that are missing quota and target. They're the ones who are always complaining about, oh, well, Ali's a micromanager. It's like, well, yeah, well, maybe if you hit your quota and you hit your targets, I wouldn't have to micromanage you. It's not micromanagement. It is, again, going back to Muhammad, it's my responsibility to make sure I get paid to make sure that everything is finely tuned. There's no stone left unturned. And that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Not only do you get paid for that, but you are ultimately responsible. You know, the sales leader, the sales manager is what I consider the linchpin of every organization. And without a strong, effective sales leader, the only person who does well without a strong sales leader is a superstar. And most salespeople simply are not superstars. They're what I call plotters. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they plot along, quotas kind of off in the distance. They occasionally they'll hit it. Sometimes, most of the time they don't. And those are typically the ones who are complaining about, why are you micromanaging me? And, you know, I'm doing the best I can, but I'm with you. You actually almost lost me for a second, but you brought it back, and I'm with you. First of all, you can do, a paralysis by analysis. I've seen organizations where literally I had to take a magnifying glass to read their spreadsheets because there was so much crap in there that was useless. But I am a big fan of tracking bottom line activity. How many dials does it take to get a person on the phone? How many people do you have to speak to get to an appointment? How many appointments turn into a deal? With some very basic metrics like that, I can help a salesperson achieve any goal, but you've got to have that bottom line stuff. And I'm also with you with the buyer is a liar. That's an old saying. It's usually not true. Just like not all salespeople are liars. It used to be, when I was younger, there was a lot of that going on, but most salespeople are honest. And I find most buyers certainly aren't lying on purpose. They may give you misinformation accidentally, and occasionally, of course, there are people, but for the most part, people, why would somebody let you into their office or get on a Zoom call with you because they're interested in what you've got and then lie to you? That doesn't make sense. If they need Ali's consulting or my training or anything like that, they should be willing to have an open and honest conversation. If they're not, why'd you get on the phone in the first place? And I always consider it's on me. Why did I not get you into the situation where you felt comfortable opening up to me? I always believe in responsibility. And the salespeople who blame the bad leads, my bad manager, or anything like that, that's the laughter of recognition. Yes.
So here's what I don't understand. And Jeff, I mean, you've been doing this for a minute longer than I have. So I would ask for you to help me understand this, because maybe I'm just too simple when it comes to this. But here's my thought. When a salesperson tells me, or even a sales leader, right, tells me, here are all the reasons why I didn't hit quota. Here are the bad leads. And, at some point, I'm just kind of sitting there and I'm just like, okay, tell me more. I'm really curious to hear more. What would you like, right? And well, I'd like a lead, I'd like more leads, and I'd like the leads to be this type and this. I'm like, okay, let me call the lead factory and see if I can order those ones for you, please. Right? Here's the thing. This is the thing that they need to listen and understand. If everything that you are asking for was true and I could have, I wouldn't need you. That's the thing that they don't understand. Okay, if I had these great leads that were ready to buy with their credit cards out, why do I need a salesperson? I don't. It's because it's devoid of that situation. It's because I don't have that. You are my insurance policy to ensuring that I hit revenue targets. I don't have these great leads. These people aren't ready to buy. They don't know what their pain is. And yeah, they're annoying. Cool. That's why I'm paying you a rip to actually go out there. And, because of that, I don't want to deal with that. I'm paying you to deal with it. So help me understand that if those things weren't true, you really think that you'd have a job? You really think you'd make 400 grand next year? No. So Jeff, help me understand that. Like, where am I wrong here?
You're not wrong. If they were ready to buy and they had their credit card out, all they need to go is go to the website. It's the same thing with marketing materials. If marketing materials sold, they wouldn't need guys like you and me. They wouldn't need salespeople. We serve a purpose. And, in my auto signature, it says salespeople either have excuses or closed business. Choose one.
Yeah.
And as a sales manager myself, I consider my job to take away every obstacle to their success and every excuse so that all they have to do is go out and do their job. Just go do. Look, sales is not rocket science. If it was, I couldn't do it. There's some very basic things that if you just do them right and do them consistently, it's hard not to succeed. But salespeople seem hell-bent on making it much harder than it has to be, yes?
It's the narrative. It's the story that they tell themselves. And unfortunately, I find that nowadays a lot of sales leaders are very weak and they reinforce these stories for their people. We've created a lot of entitlement within sales teams, and we have not level set with them as to what their true responsibility is because we don't hold them accountable. And that's where the problem comes in, right? So any perks or anything that you provide to your team without accountability is what will create entitlement. Any training without accountability is purely entertainment, right? So if I'm going to teach you, if I'm going to tell you that I'm going to give you something, I'm going to expect you to use it. And if you don't use it, then I'm failing you as a leader. Mm-hmm. And all I did was entertain you. And I'm not that funny, right? Like, so like you're not paying, I'm there to produce results and that's it, right? And if you don't like me, then okay. Again, in my contracts, nowhere does it say, hey, Ali, the sales team must like you. Really, it's always focused around revenue. So it's what I'm going to be fixated on.
Get the job done, period. One of the things I often tell salespeople is, great, the leads suck, the market's down, you've got 8 million excuses. Guess what? At the end of the month, Citibank's going to come and take your house. There are no excuses. Make it happen. And there's almost always a way. You said something a moment ago, and I actually had that on my list of questions. Why do you believe that most sales leaders are very bad at their jobs?
I think it's a few things. So we've had this degradation over time. And so I think that a lot of it has to do with this pendulum effect of, so I don't think that you and I can watch movies like Boiler Room and Wolf of Wall Street, and we can have a laugh because like we probably grew up in some level of an environment like that. But I don't think that you and I would look at that and say, God, I miss those days where we could just lie and do whatever. It's like no, I don't think either of us want to be anywhere near that, right? And I think that the reality is most people weren't that dishonest. I think that's just fictionalized for Hollywood. But those days, people used to run their teams very hard in the 80s and the 90s. Like it was run very hard. But then it because of the bad actors, a lot of people were just like, no. We need to pull this back. Rightfully so. But I think the problem came is that we overcorrected. And now it's like, hey, you can't run these people too hard. You can't do this. You can't do this. You can't do this. And then we started giving power to people that deserved power, the team members. But then they got a little too high on their own supply. And then they started asking for things. And then what happened is you got those people that were feeling entitled that were entitled slowly start moving into management over time. And now we've got these entitled reps that never really learned a hard day's worth of work in leadership positions. So if you don't know something, how can you implement it? And so I think that that's a lot of what's happening is we've got entitled leaders who believe the BS that their salespeople tell them. Oh, this is hard, and I don't want to work this way, and I want to work-life balance, and oh, this is this, and oh, this is. It's just like, bro, like I don't, Jeff. I don't know about you, but I remember when I was in my 20s, I'd be working pin to pin. Like it just was what it was, right? Like I would wake up at 7 a.m. I had my sales meeting, or I would wake up earlier than that, but I had my sales meeting at 8:30, and when you're selling insurance, right, you can sell a little bit during the day, but most of it was at night. Right. So I would consistently be out until 10, 11 p.m. at night, every single night, and then have to be back in the office by 8. It just was what it was. And then there was a lot of weekends in there. So that's the world I grew up in. And so I don't understand, but most people didn't. Right. And I never had any PTO. I was 100% commission sales rep. So I think that as a result, that they think that that's one big thing, is the leaders aren't truly properly trained. And then I think then the second big thing is now we've got this reinforcement of, like, I don't know your opinions on servant leadership. I don't know your opinions on a lot of things. I have very, very strong opinions on a lot of things. And I don't believe in servant leadership. I just don't. I think that creates a weird dichotomy within the team. I think that a sales leader's job is not to serve their people. A sales leader's job is to achieve the necessary results, period. And I think that when we conflate the two and we confuse the two, this is where the problems come in. And that's where we don't have the difficult conversations, because we're trying to be nice, right? You can still serve your people, but how are you serving them? By not helping them grow, right? And this is what I always tell all my clients is like, look, I mean, like if any of you guys watch the movie Mean Girls, right? And like Amy Poehler's and then she's like, I'm not a regular mom, I'm a cool mom, right? It's like, you could be the cool mom if you want, right? But how are you helping them? You're just going to create a bunch of trust fund babies with drug addictions that are just going to have a lot of problems, right? Or you can actually be their coach. I'm very much fundamentally aligned with Nick Saban, right? It's like, am I making this person a person of value? And sometimes they're going to hate you. They are going to hate you, but they're going to look back 5 years from now and they're going to say, yeah, I hated Ali, but hey, I'm a millionaire now because of him.
Yep.
I'd rather have that conversation. So
I agree.
I think, you know, I don't know that I fully answered your question, but I think that the big thing is I think we've just had a degradation of good leadership over time. And as a result, other people have not learned how to be good leaders, and then they move into leadership positions, and then it's this, regressive effect.
Yeah, and I think you can do that without being Alec Baldwin and Glenn Ross.
No, I mean, see, here's the thing, right? Like, why do we have to look at these polar opposite situations, right? And so to me, it's like, okay, yeah, you can be like an absolute horrible person, or you just have to be like a total doormat. It's like, why? Why can't we just find something in the middle where we're holding our team accountable? We can actually be real humans, enjoy our time with them. But then, hey, you're not doing your job, and now I got to have a difficult conversation because I am your leader and it is my responsibility. Like, why? Like, I don't understand.
And I can't get out of my head now that you said don't get high in your own supply. Scarface, the management by Scarface. I love that. Yeah. Sales, you mentioned it a couple of times already. Salespeople tend to dislike accountability. And to me, I'm always amazed that more salespeople and sales leaders aren't actually getting great information from their clients, and because they're a great source of information. And one of the things I offer is coaching. And I was stunned to learn that the thing that my coaching clients like best about my coaching sessions is the accountability, because every session ends with them making a commitment to a certain amount of prospecting, which I then hold them accountable to on the next one. I kind of thought that, well, this is a nice thing to do, but what they really want is my advice. To a person, I love the accountability, Jeff. I love making promises to you because I'll break a promise to myself, but I won't break it to you. And I actually tell clients before they sign on with me, look, you break 2 promises in a row to me, I'm firing you as a client. I don't need your money. If you're not getting the result, I don't care if you're paying me $1 or $1 million for coaching, you're wasting it. And I've got no time to waste. I'd rather go take on somebody who's going to do the work.
Do you know why that is? Why people will gladly break a promise to themselves and not to you? There's a book. I don't do a lot. I skim books most of the day nowadays. But there's a book by I want to say her name's Gretchen Rubin, but I'm not sure. But it's called The 4 Tendencies. And basically, it's everyone in the world fits into one of 4 tendencies. And there's actually a 4 tendencies quiz online. It's super simple, like 8 questions. I strongly recommend everyone take it. But basically, you're either a rebel, you're an obliger, you're a upholder, or you are, I don't know, there's something else. But anyways, most of the population on the planet, they are obligers. they will gladly break promises to themselves because they don't hold themselves accountable. They don't respect themselves enough. But they will honor their commitments to other people's because they feel bad letting somebody else down. And that's their natural tendency. Most of the planet are obligers. And so they give this example in the book where these two friends had a very difficult time working out in the mornings. So what they would do is they would trade. One person would get the other person's shoe. They would trade like just the right foot. So now I know if I wake up in the morning at 5 a.m. and I'm like, I just want to hit the snooze. I don't want to go to the gym today. I know that I'm going to screw you over and you won't be able to work out because I won't show up with your shoe. That will compel me to move forward because I'll let myself down. I'll break promises to myself. But now I'm screwing you over. It's not even just a promise to you, but I'm also preventing you from working out. That's going to oblige me to move forward. And so most people on this planet are obligers, and that's how you can kind of circumvent some situations. It's know thyself. Once you know yourself, man, the world just becomes a lot easier.
Got it. I wrote down 4 tendencies. I'm going to look that one up. Excuse me. Every company says they want a high-performing sales team and a sales culture in their organization, but few really seem to produce one. What are some of the essentials of creating a high-performing team? Clearly, accountability is one of them.
So, I think it just kind of boils down to a few things, right? So, yes, accountability is definitely one of them. I think the other one would be, so it's your strategy, right? So, and then finally, like culture is another one, but culture, you need to have a culture of accountability. But then there's also this, like, I have little like core values. So I'm a big believer in core values. And so I believe every organization should have their own core values, but I also like to create mini core values for every sales team that I work with. And one of the core values is too much pageantry is not enough pageantry. I think people like to have fun at work. I think if you have fun and that will create motivation, right? So why do some athletes perform really, really well? Because they have a love for their game. It's you have to fall in love with the journey. So for me, one role of me as a leader is how do I create this environment of fun? Because it is super hard. If you are going to grind them and you're going to run them into the ground, because that's what I will do. I run all my teams right into the ground. And if that's what I'm going to do, it is a countdown to when they're just like, F you, Ali, and leave. But how do I create an environment and we create a fun? Right back there, I got a Louis Vuitton bag, and right now that is empty, but usually it is full of cash, right? We keep cash and then we throw it out. Like we create this pageantry, we create this environment of fun. So that's the kind of like that culture piece. So how do you create a high performing team? Is one, you need to have a culture of excitement and fun. Everyone needs to be having fun. For me, a lot of pageantry. We do everything with a lot of class. So that's one thing. The accountability is the second thing. But that third thing that I really think that a lot of people miss the boat on is strategy. Most people don't have a good strategy, right? And I'll just give you everything right here. This is what I try and hold back for my clients, but F it. I'll just give it to you right here. Most people's strategy is god awful, right? Most people will never ask themselves this question: why would this human buy? And even if they accidentally think that, they will lie to themselves. They'll be like, well, they'll buy it because it's going to help them do X, Y, and Z and blah, 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 blah. It's the right thing. No, right? Why would this person go to the gym? Oh, they go to the gym because it's the healthy choice. No, nobody goes to the gym because it's the healthy choice. Everyone goes to the gym because it's like, I want to look good for someone else, or I want to look good. I want this sort of validation. That's the real reason why people go to the gym, right? So long story short, that's the first question, is ask yourself, why would this person buy? The second thing about your strategy is, and be honest with yourself. But the second thing about your strategy is, what is your differentiator? Most people's differentiator is horrible. Absolutely terrible. Like, it's not a differentiator at all. And so this is my litmus test for whether or not you have a good differentiator, right? So when I ask, like, okay, like, look, there's 100 companies that do what you do, right? 80 of them are terrible. Let's not talk about them. 10 of them are good. Okay, cool. But then 10 of them are great. Let's just assume you are in the great category. There's still 9 other people that are equally as good as you. Okay? Why would I work with you instead of any of those 9? And most people's response to that would be something to the effect of, well, our team really cares. We're results driven. We're data driven. And they'll give you any number of stupid things. Or if it's
get me. You get me. Oh, horrible.
Yeah. They'll say something, or if it's a tech platform, they'll talk about a feature that they have. Okay, wrong. And so my litmus test is, would when someone asks you what makes you different or why would I use you, the question you need to run it through is, would anyone ever say the opposite? If nobody would ever say the opposite, then it's not a differentiator. So would anyone ever say, so if your differentiator is our team really cares, we're data driven, and we get results, would anyone's differentiator ever be, we don't give two shits? I've never gotten a result for any of my clients. And my team, whew, they're terrible. If no one would ever say that, then you saying the opposite of that is not a differentiator. So that's what you need to first sit down on, is because if you don't know it, how will they know it? Right? Think about that. If you don't know why they should use you instead of their competitor, you're putting the onus on them. You are floating that shot, right? I'm a big basketball guy, right? Like, Jeff, you understand what a floater is? You know what a floater is?
I don't, and it's one of my questions.
Okay. All right. I'll hit you with this. Okay. In basketball, right? Simple physics, right? A shot, right? You're supposed to have the gooseneck and you're supposed to like flick the wrist, right? And you're supposed to shoot it. That is a higher percentage shot than a floater. A floater is when you kind of like, a lot of times like smaller point guards will go into the lane and they'll toss the shot up because they're trying to get it over the defender. And ultimately, and then there's a couple other reasons as well. But anyways, it's a lower percentage shot unless you've mastered it, right? But it's a lower percentage shot on average because you don't control the full trajectory of the shot. So when you float a shot, you're just controlling the trajectory to the apex. And then you allow gravity to do the rest. You let natural momentum do this, but you don't have any control over it. You haven't put spin on it. Versus with a shot, you control the entire trajectory all the way to the back of the rim. That's where you are aiming for. And so for most people, when you don't know what your differentiator is, you're floating it. You're like, let me just say some bullshit, and I hope that the gravity, the natural progression, nobody else says something or everyone else screws up their deal so badly that I'm the only one left. That natural progression allows me to be the one to actually work out. Now, we never actually think through this, but that's actually what we're doing. But for me, it's like, I don't trust anything or anyone. So I'm not going to float anything. So for me, I need precision. I need direct impact. So for me, it's like, I need to control this all the way through. So I have to control the narrative inside your head. I have to implant that narrative. You have to know exactly why you will choose me. And if you don't get that from me, you're going to create it in yourself. And that's me floating a shot. And I'm not going to do that because I don't control it. And I don't know what narrative you're going to tell yourself. And that's a problem.
Yeah. And if you can't differentiate, then what's it going to boil down to? Price.
Yeah.
That's the last thing I want to sell on.
You commoditize yourself, and it's going to come down to price and a whole host of factors that, man, is this really what we're doing?
I don't compete on price. First of all, I don't drop my price by a penny, not a penny. I don't care. You want somebody a penny cheaper? Go talk to one of my competitors. I'm happy to introduce you to them. They're lovely people and they're very good at their jobs. They're not me, but they're a penny cheaper. Not for me. I'm just not going to play that game. I'm more interested in having a great conversation where somebody sees the value in doing business with me, so that it does not become about price. And you're absolutely right. If I can't express that to them in a way that they can clearly understand it, I'm screwed. Then I'm down to price. And I'm never going to win on price because I'm certainly not the cheapest. But in my opinion, nobody's looking for a guy like you or a guy like me, the cheapest one. Nobody's looking for the cheapest sales trainer, the cheapest sales consultant. They're looking for the best they can possibly get at a price that they feel is reasonable and they can actually afford. So I've definitely spoken with people. Jeff, I'd love to work with you. I don't have that kind of money. I get it. If you ever do, give me a call, and it's fine by me. And that brings back the need for every salesperson, as far as I'm concerned, to be consistently and effectively prospecting. It's the one problem for almost every organization I've ever walked into. They're just not seeing enough prospects. Mm-hmm. And if there's not a sales leader who's driving that activity, it's no small wonder why they're not hitting that quota. In fact, I'm not a fan of achieving quota. You should be blowing away your quota. My management style is, you want me to shoot off fireworks? You don't get that for hitting quota. The reward for hitting quota is you get to keep your job. You want to shoot off fireworks? Blow that thing away.
Yeah.
You want to impress me? Show me some real stuff. So yeah, you beat me to the what is floating it, because I didn't know I'm not a big basketball guy. And let's talk about quota. What are some of the obvious things that a salesperson? I know we've talked about sales leaders, but for salespeople, what are some of the obvious things they should be doing to achieve their quota, or even better, blowing it away? And the obvious one is certainly consistent prospecting. Anything else that you recommend?
Well, I'll tell you the simplest thing that I still cannot understand why people don't do. Again, I'm not a smart guy, Jeff. Like I'm a very straightforward, simple fella. And like sometimes, simplicity is king. And I think that people like to, overcomplicate things. And I like to simplify complexity. So the quickest and easiest way to hit your quota, you hit the nail on the head is prospect more, is build out that pipeline. So here's the thing that people need to understand about that is people fall in love with deals and then they start hoping that they'll close, right? So it's like, okay, I need another 100 grand. It's last week of the month. I need another 100 grand. And let's just say my average deal value is, I don't know, let's say 50K. So I need to close 2 deals in order to hit my quota, right? I'll find 2 deals. And I'll be like, please, for the love of God, please. And everyone turns very religious last week of the month, right? And it's just like, please, God, please help me, right? Here's my question. What's your close rate? What's your close rate? If your close rate's 30%, let's just say even 50%. Simple math. In theory, if those are of quality leads and you're actually being honest with yourself, you're only going to close 1 out of 2 of them. You're not going to hit quota. But people don't run that math in their head. They don't understand that, right? They all of a sudden somehow seem to think that they're going to bat 1,000 at this point. That doesn't work that way. So for me, the quickest way to hit your quota is be honest with yourself and look at it and say, look, I'm 100 grand short. I need to find 4 proper deals that actually have a chance of closing, because I know at least 2 of them might close. And 2 of them will close, but will they close in the time? And that I don't know. And so probably sitting with 4 is also still not an idea. Maybe anything with 8. And in order for me to now hit another 100 grand, if my average deal value is 50K, I probably need $400,000 of pipeline that I'm actively following up with. And you look at any salesperson last week of the month, they do not have that. They do not have that because they spent their whole time praying and falling in love with deals. Because you know what? That's easier. It's easier to have something directly in front of you and hope it will close and tell everyone what you are working on, something actively you are working on, that whether it closes or not, you don't know. But that's easier than just being like, hey, I got to go find something else. I got to go find something new. They don't want to do that. It's too hard. It's inconvenient. Well,
you got to stop making so much sense. You just stop making so much sense. If I didn't say good morning to him already, good morning to Joe Pontius, who I used to manage the team he works on. And if he could join us on this conversation, he'd tell you that there's a word you mentioned a couple of times that I despise, and that word is hope. Hope, boy, oh boy. Anytime I'm in a pipeline review and somebody says, I hope to close it, I know you're not going to. Hope, deals don't close on hope. Hope is pie in the sky. You got to have concrete, here's why it's going to close. And that, we talked about numbers and metrics. You better know your closing ratio, because you're screwed.
Yeah.
You're screwed if you don't. I don't care how good you are at selling. I'm pretty damn good, and I know you are too. But unless you're speaking to enough prospects, you're not going to close enough deals. The numbers, in that case, numbers don't lie. Now, if you've got a 50% closing ratio, you might close 4 in a row, and you go, wait a minute, I'm closing 100%. No, you're not. What about the next 4? The numbers don't lie. I often say salespeople lie, but numbers don't.
Yeah. No, I get that.
What about a salesperson who's looking for career growth, who wants to advance? What are the things a salesperson who wants to get ahead should be doing?
So so here's the thing that I think that a lot of salespeople don't fully understand. And I don't think enough people talk about this. And I think we do our salespeople a disservice. Sales leadership is not the only path to growth. And sales leadership is not for everybody. I think some of the greatest sales reps out there are very money hungry, money motivated, right? They've got their own internal drivers, and a lot of times they directly correlate with some financial success, and that's okay. I love people like that on my team. But I think then the second thing to that is it is usually once you enter leadership, you are taking a step back in top line compensation potentially. And so so a lot of times salespeople get it twisted as like, okay, if I want to I want to grow. I want to make more. I have to go into leadership. And then they come in and then they're disillusioned. I think that a lot of times as a salesperson, what you need to do is you need to figure out your own path, whether the company supplies you with that or not. You need to figure out your own path to your own career growth. Now, that could be increasing skill sets. Sometimes that means leaving the organization. And sometimes that just means hunting down bigger deals, better deals. And so that might be it. Sales leadership is not for everyone. And the reason why I say that is because those are two wildly separate skill sets. In my opinion, your sales leader needs to be one of the best salespeople. They don't have to be the best, but they need to be one of the best salespeople inside of the organization. But then you need to add this other skill set that has nothing to do with sales. It's leadership. And leadership is a skill set all on its own. And so a lot of times, just because you have experience at being a good salesperson does not mean you have any, like, just because I'm a great driver doesn't mean I know how to fly a plane, right? Two wildly different principles. And so I think that the thing that people need to realize is that if you are going to go into sales leadership, you need to develop your own leadership abilities. And just becoming a better salesperson isn't that. Don't get me wrong. You should be doing that. But there's a second layer to that, and you need to understand what true leadership is. And most people have no clue what true leadership is, which is, goes back to the same problem that we were having. So I think that if a salesperson wants to grow in their career, they need to be honest with themselves about what it is that they want. Because for some people, money isn't everything. For some people, they do really love the team camaraderie. They do love seeing people develop, and there's other things that they want, right? And that's cool. That's great. But then just getting better at sales isn't going to help you do any of that. Or if your whole goal is, okay, I want to make as much money as humanly possible, it's very unlikely being a salesperson is the right path to it. When I was selling insurance back in the day, the average salesperson, remember, this is door-to-door selling life insurance. The average salesperson at the company, we had, something like 700 reps. The average salesperson sold $2,500 of annualized premium every single week. Okay. I sold anywhere between 12 to 16,000 in annualized premium every single week, right? I was making decent money. I was getting paid 70% rip on that every single week. I'm 21 years old, living in my parents' basement, making 10 grand a week. So I had to take a step down in earnings when I became a sales manager, right? I didn't know that. I thought, oh man, I'm gonna get overrides. I'm gonna get this. It's like, yeah, I got overrides, but I didn't have my pad to be writing on anymore. So then I had to go out and start selling, and then my team suffered, and then I had to try and find this balance. Eventually I did, but it was a long 2 years while I was trying to figure this thing out. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to realize what it is that you're signing up for.
Yeah. I don't want to talk anybody out of it. If you want a career in sales management, but it is a pain in the rear end job. You better be somebody who has the skills. And I actually wrote an article once called "The High Cost of Sales Managers Who Suck." And the essence of it was sales managers, the vast majority of them are salespeople who did a great job and got promoted. And the reason is, so I'm your manager. You work for the company that you're my employee, and you're my top sales guy. And I've done everything I can. So I come to you at some point. I go, Ali, you're my top guy. You've won every contest. I've paid you everything I can pay you. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a promotion. I'm going to make you a sales manager. And to the Ali in this example, that sounds great because it sounds like you're going to make more money and work less hard. No, you're not. You're going to make less money, at least than your top producers are, and you're going to work way harder. It's a very difficult job. And the big thing is they never get trained. Just because you're good at sales does not mean you're going to be good at sales management. The only way I became good at sales management, I took lots of courses. I was like you, I was doing door-to-door. I sold Encyclopedia Britannica door-to-door for 8 years. So when you talk about evenings and weekends, that's when the money was made. Nobody. Yeah. First of all, we would never give a one-legged pitch, and either the wife or the husband or both are out during the day. So I was out way after dark, Saturday nights, Sundays too, because that's what it took. But eventually they came to me and said, "We're going to make you a manager." I'm like, "Why?" "Oh, we think you'd be good at it." I'm like, "Okay," because I'm a kid and I don't know any better. But they gave me outstanding training. They trained me the difference between selling and being a sales manager. And to me, the definition of selling is not what most people think it is, which is it's about convincing and persuading and talking people into things. That's not my definition. My definition of selling is sales is a conversation or a series of conversations leading to help the other person choose to do business with you. But Sales management is all about convincing and persuading and talking people into things, mostly things that they don't want to do, like prospect consistently.
No, I agree. And so to bring it back to the example that you started with was, if you've got a top salesperson and, you're going to now promote them, it's, the question becomes is why? Well, the obvious answer is, well, because if I don't promote them, I don't give them something new, they're going to get lazy. They're going to get disillusioned. They're not going to be as enjoyable. They don't have the same challenge. They're going to start to look to leave. They're going to get complacent with the earnings that they're currently making. They're going to want to make, those are all the reasons. Very valid. But that, in my opinion, is lazy leadership. It's a lazy answer to just promote them, right? It is your responsibility as a sales leader. Why do you think I created this shirt, right? Why do you think I created those are the little ancillary things that great leaders do to keep their people focused on what they need to do. The second that you achieve every single target, if me as a leader, I have not had the foresight to see, oh shit, Jeff's about to hit every single thing and knock it out of the park in the next 3 months. And I'm not sitting there preparing that, okay, what's the next hurdle? What's the next summit that Jeff needs to cross? I'm just being lazy. And then I just say, forget about it. And then, oh shit, 3 months ago, Jeff, you hit all of your targets. You want to be a leader, right? That's lazy. That's lazy, right? Be a good leader, figure it out, have an appropriate plan. And this is not about keeping them stringing along, right? But it's first, again, this is where you should have your check-ins and be talking to that person. If that person truly wants to be in the leadership, you need to let them know about it. And then if that's still what they want, then give them a path to that. But if you've had the appropriate conversation with them and it's not what they want, then it's your responsibility as a leader to give them a different avenue to continue to grow. Most people don't do that.
Yep. And by the way, if I'm your top salesperson and you promote me to sales manager, guess what you just did? You just lost your top salesperson.
Correct.
You're screwing yourself. So that's crazy. Ali, we only have time for one more question. I want to get to this one. So many sales teams are working remotely and you hate remote sales teams. Why is that?
So I'm reminded of a quote from Nick Saban. I think he said something to the effect of, you got 5 ways to do anything. You can do something poorly. You can do something okay. You can do something good. You can do something great, or you can do something elite, right? I don't know who wants to choose any of these 4, but I don't care. The only teams that we work with are teams that want to be elite, period, right? I don't even want to work with teams that want to be great. I only want to work with teams that want to be elite. So it just takes what it takes. And the reality is when you work remote and you are working at home, high performing, just look at the top of the world athletes, right? They are at performance centers. They're not doing push-ups in their basement. They are at performance centers measuring their O2 levels to figure out, can I get a slight edge? Where are my red blood counts, blood cells? What's the count of them? They are measuring every little thing. If anyone is familiar with epigenetics, right, it's how you react to your environment, right? That's a wildly different, that will produce different results. If you're familiar with propinquity, right, just the way that you can pick up on things, right? When you are a new rep, you will hear the way people talk about things. You will get a vibe for certain things. So again, I'm not saying that you cannot run a team remote. You probably could. I mean, cool. But there are other people that will do that. At Rose Garden, we will not do that. We will not run remote teams. It's just not, in my opinion, it is inappropriate for me to recommend that, because based on our ethos, our teams will always be elite and significantly outperform everyone else. And the only way I can control that and the only way I can guarantee that is if I've got eyes on this person. Right? Doesn't mean that they all got to work out of here at Atlanta, but although we do manage a lot of our client sales teams and they sit right here in front of me and I yell at them on a day-to-day basis, but otherwise we will implant a leader inside of their organization. They got to bring them in. I will not allow people to run their people, because I think it's something like I've seen studies where it says 30-something% of people engage in their day-to-day off of their couch, 7 or 12 or 15% do it out of bed. It's are we insane? If I want someone operating elite and they're doing it out of their bed, no, not for me.
Yeah, I like the way you use the term elite. You talk about elite athletes. Watch the Olympics. Sometimes it's 1/100th of a second between the gold and the silver, and nobody remembers the silver medalist. It's all about going for the gold. Ali, we're out of time. I'm going to share my screen. Can you tell people how to reach you in case they're interested?
If anyone is interested in reaching out to me, just you go to rosegardenconsulting.com. My Instagram is alimirza.rgc. I'm always happy to take a conversation, always happy to help. Even send me an email, ali@rosegardenconsulting.com. Very straightforward. Always happy to help.
And boy, oh boy, do you clean up well, huh?
Yeah.
You look
got me on a Friday. This is a casual Friday. Otherwise, every single day, suit and tie.
I hear you, my friend. Well, Ali, it's a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for generously sharing your brilliance with the team. And I will leave everybody as I always do. Please remember that sales is a game of making things happen. Get out there and make sales happen. Ali, thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll catch you next time. So long, everybody.